Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wonder if kids are just naturally honest, or if cheating is something they learn, or even have a tendency towards? Well, this new study might have some surprising answers. Today we're diving into a fascinating study that developed a clever new way to catch kids being, well, a little bit sneaky. Cheating is something we all know about, but it is notoriously hard to study, especially in kids. It is not exactly something they'll happily fess up to. So, researchers created something called the word-riddle paradigm, and it is pretty neat. Here is the lowdown. They looked at 8 to 10-year-olds, and basically they gave these kids word riddles. Now, here is the trick. Some of the riddles were impossible to solve without peeking at the answers, which were conveniently placed nearby, and some kids were told explicitly, "Don't peek." The big question was, do kids cheat when they think no one's looking, and what influences this behavior? Previous ways to study cheating were tricky. Some needed hidden cameras, others just guessed if kids were cheating based on their scores, which isn't super precise. This new method is different. The riddles themselves are designed so that if you don't peek at the answer key, you simply can't get it right. The correct answers are just too complex for the number of letter spaces provided unless you've seen them. This means any correct answer to these specific riddles is a sure sign of cheating. So imagine you are 8 years old, you are sitting there with some drawings and a sheet of paper. The idea is to guess the word from the drawing. The first few are easy, like book or horse, and you can figure them out. But then come the harder ones, for example, to guess owl. You might have way more letter spaces than needed. Or the problem might show you a picture of a frog and tell you the word is sea frog. You are not going to magically guess sea frog as the answer to a frog drawing unless you've gotten a peek at the answers. The kids received a small payment for participation, and then they were left alone to complete most of the riddles. Half of them heard the instruction "don't peek," and the other half did not. And what did they find? Well, it turns out about 46% of these 8 to 10-year-olds cheated. That is almost half. And when they did cheat, they didn't just do it once. On average, the kids who cheated solved more than half of the impossible riddles dishonestly. That is a lot of cheating. Interestingly, telling kids explicitly, "Don't peek" actually reduced how much they cheated, meaning they solved fewer of those hard riddles dishonestly. But it didn't stop them from deciding to cheat in the first place. Their tendency to cheat, that initial decision, wasn't significantly affected. This suggests that the reminder about rules might make kids more self-aware or maybe a little more guilty, curbing the extent of their cheating. But the underlying urge or decision to cheat might be harder to influence with just a simple instruction. The paper mentions a p-value. Think of a p-value as a flukometer, a low p-value, like one that is less than 0.05, means the result is unlikely to be just a random fluke. Here, the p-value was 0.053, which is just barely above that 0.05 cutoff. So, they concluded that the instruction "don't peek" didn't significantly stop kids from deciding to cheat. But when they looked at how much they cheated, the frequency telling them not to peek did make a difference. The p-value here was 0.001, which is very low, meaning this result is very unlikely to be a fluke. Kids who were told not to peek cheated on significantly fewer words. So while the instruction didn't stop the initial decision to cheat for many, it did make those who cheated less likely to do it as often. They also looked at age. They found that younger children in this age group, closer to 8, were slightly more likely to cheat than the older ones, closer to 10. This aligns with previous research suggesting cheating behavior might decrease as children get older. However, they noted that the amount of cheating once a child decided to cheat wasn't really affected by age. This hints that the decision to cheat might be more age-dependent, but the extent of how much they cheat might be more about the situation at hand. A really interesting part of the study explored what individual differences might be linked to cheating. They looked at traits like callous unemotional traits, which basically means being less empathetic and showing less guilt, empathy itself, and something called effortful control, which is like your ability to manage your impulses and stay focused. They used parent reports to measure these, and they didn't find any significant links. This was somewhat surprising. Cheating wasn't strongly associated with how empathetic a child was, or how well they could control themselves, or even if they showed fewer of those callous unemotional traits. The researchers have a few ideas why. 1. Parent reports might not be perfectly accurate because parents see their kids in a home environment, which might be different from how they behave in a testing situation. 2. And this is a big one. They suggest that cheating at this age might be very common and almost a normal part of figuring out rules. It is not necessarily tied to deeper personality issues like antisocial tendencies yet. It could be more about curiosity, testing boundaries, or how tempting a situation is, rather than a stable trait. It's like learning what rules are and why they're there by sometimes breaking them. This might explain why it doesn't link to things like reduced empathy yet. Now, for the twin study aspect, this is where things get really interesting. They used a special analysis called an ACE model, which looks at how much of a behavior is due to genes A, shared environment. C things twins experience similarly, like family rules or school, and unique environment, E things that are different for each twin, like their individual friends or experiences. And the results get this. A whopping 65% of the variation in cheating behavior was explained by unique environmental factors or just measurement error. Another 35% was due to genetic influences. But here is the kicker. Virtually 0% was due to shared environment. This means that how much a child cheats isn't really shaped by growing up in the same family with the same parents and rules as their twin. Instead, it is more about what makes each child's experience unique, or the genes they inherit. It suggests that if one twin cheats, it doesn't strongly predict if their sibling will beyond their shared genes. This implies that the specific situations and personal experiences outside of the shared family environment play a much larger role. So, what does it all mean? The word-riddle paradigm seems like a really useful and simple tool for researchers. It directly measures cheating without needing fancy equipment. We see that cheating is common, and while explicit instructions might not stop the initial decision to cheat, they can reduce the frequency. Age plays a role in the tendency to cheat, but not necessarily the amount. Most importantly, the study suggests that for this age group, cheating is a common behavior, possibly reflecting normal development and learning about rules, rather than being a sign of underlying antisocial traits. The significant influence of unique environmental factors underscores how personal experiences and specific contexts can shape honesty. Of course, no study is perfect. The researchers mentioned their sample was mostly white, middle to high SES families, so we need to be careful about applying these findings to everyone. Also, the word riddle task itself relies on language skills, so that could be a factor. And because the riddles were impossible to solve, honestly, it might have frustrated some kids, which could bias their behavior. They suggest future research should look at this over longer periods and use different cheating tasks to get a fuller picture. And of course, larger twin studies are always needed to get clearer genetic and environmental breakdowns. In conclusion, this study gives us a clearer picture of cheating in middle childhood. It is common, it is influenced by specific instructions, and it seems to be more about navigating the world and learning rules than deep-seated personality issues at this age. The heavy influence of unique environments suggests that individual experiences and context are key drivers. It really highlights how important individual experiences and the specific situations children find themselves in are for shaping their behavior, including their honesty. It shows us that fostering supportive social contexts is crucial if we want to encourage honest behavior. What do you all think? Does this align with your experiences or observations? Let me know in the comments below, and if you found this breakdown helpful, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to Rubin's Mind Lab, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next dive into the fascinating world of psychology. Thanks for watching.